You're watching Just the News. I'm Amita Balachandra. Let's get straight to our top story, beginning with Russia-Ukraine crisis. Russian president on Thursday announced a military operation in Ukraine and warned other countries that any attempt to interfere with the Russian action would lead to consequences they have never seen. Ukraine president, in the meantime, has vowed to fight for the country's freedom, saying, and I quote, "We're strong, we're ready for anything," end quote. In the meantime, US President Joe Biden denounced the unprovoked and unjustified attack on Ukraine and said that the world will, and I quote, "hold Russia accountable," end quote. In the meantime, Ukraine's president declared martial law, saying that Russia has targeted Ukraine's military infrastructure. He urged Ukrainians to stay home and not to panic. Martial law would impose harder restrictions, which could include bans on meetings, movements, and political parties. The country is already under the state of emergency. Now, according to a report by Reuters, Ukraine has said that over 40 Ukraine soldiers and around 10 civilians have been killed by Russian shelling. As per a report by AFP, Ukraine has said that it has killed around 50 Russian occupiers without providing details. Ukrainian president has said that the country has severed diplomatic relations with Russia. Following this, there have also been reports of multiple explosions. The Russian Defense Ministry has said that it has destroyed air bases, air defenses in Ukraine. Ukraine's Deputy Interior Minister has also said that Russia has fired missiles on military headquarters, airports, military warehouses near Kyiv, and other places as well. Meanwhile, Russia has announced the closure of its airspace for civilian flights on the western border with Ukraine and Belarus. Ukraine has also closed its airspace to civilian flights as well, according to a report by Al Jazeera. Now, India has so far advised students and citizens in Ukraine to remain calm and remain safe wherever they are. There have been 3 advisories that the Indian embassy in Kyiv has put out today itself. Everyone traveling to Kyiv have been advised to return to their respective cities temporarily. In the meantime, the embassy also said that as the situation is tense, the embassy will remain open in Kyiv. Indian envoy to Ukraine has urged people to stay in their familiar locations and said the embassy reached out to the Indian diaspora to help Indians. The embassy is working on a mission mode, it said, to find a solution. Now, the Indian embassy in Hungary has tweeted, and I quote, "Team from Embassy of India in Hungary has been dispatched so far to coordinate and provide assistance to facilitate exit of Indians from Ukraine. Mission is working with the government of Hungary to provide all possible assistance. The government of India is closely monitoring the situation and evacuation plans are being worked out," end quote. Now, also in the news, Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a high-level meeting of the Cabinet Committee on Security as the crisis has intensified. Union Home Minister Amit Shah, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval attended the meeting. Now, according to ANI, Prime Minister Modi is also expected to speak to President Putin later tonight. Meanwhile, Ukraine envoy today pleaded for India's intervention in the conflict with Russia and said that a strong voice of India might make Russian President Vladimir Putin think. Ukraine envoy told reporters, and I quote, "The recommendations and statements of the Ministry of External Affairs, that was India, is closely following the development of events. We are deeply dissatisfied with this position." What does that mean? Closely following. Now 50 people have been killed. When hundreds and thousands will be killed in this case, what will happen? We are expecting a much more favorable attitude of the Indian government in this crisis situation. It is the moment of truth, the moment of destiny. We are waiting. Now, NATO chief has said that there are no NATO combat troops, no NATO troops at all inside Ukraine. The chief has said, and I quote, "We have made it clear that we don't have any plans and intention of deploying NATO troops to Ukraine. What we have made clear is that we have already increased and we are increasing the presence of NATO troops in the eastern part of the alliance on NATO territory, end quote. Earlier, NATO chief had called Russia's attack as a deliberate, cold-blooded and long-planned invasion. Now, UK's foreign secretary has also said that she has summoned Russia's ambassador to the UK to explain Russia's illegal, what she says, illegal, unprovoked invasion of Ukraine. She tweeted, and I quote, "We will be imposing severe sanctions and rallying countries in support of Ukraine," end quote. Now, Ukrainian president on Thursday called on all citizens who were ready to defend the country from Russian forces to come forward, saying that Kyiv would issue weapons to everyone who wants them. This is a report by Reuters. Also, there's news that's come in that Ukrainian military plane with as many as 14 people on board has crashed amid an ongoing attack by Russian troops. News agency AFP has quoted Ukrainian emergency services and said that the plane crashed near the capital, Kyiv. Now, the service said that it was still determining how many people have died in this crash. Moving away from this developing story, of course, we'll bring you regular updates on Russia-Ukraine conflict. But moving on from that is hijab ban controversy that we've been continuously following so far. There's a report that's come in from Bengaluru that a 17-year-old Sikh girl was allegedly asked to remove her turban in light of the interim order of the Karnataka High Court. And to give you a bit of a background, on February 10th, the interim order by the High Court barred students temporarily from wearing religious attire in institutions when there is an existing uniform mandate. Now, this is a report by the News Minute, which says that Mount Carmel PU College has cited that interim order and asked the 17-year-old student if she could remove her turban while attending classes. In the meantime, Mount Carmel PU College has responded and said that the student was never asked to remove the turban, but only asked to explain her position as questions were raised by some other students in view of the interim order. And on to Karnataka High Court hearing this particular case. Now it's date 10. The Karnataka government today has informed the High Court that a first information report has been registered against the members of the CFI, or Campus Front of India, who had allegedly threatened some teachers in the government pre-university girls' college in Udupi district. Now, Karnataka High Court is hearing a batch of petitions challenging the hijab ban in the state. The hearing will now resume tomorrow. News from Maharashtra right now. Ministers and legislators in the ruling Maha Vikas Agahdi protested near Mantralaya against the arrest of Maharashtra Minister Nawab Malik. Now, Malik was arrested yesterday in connection with a money laundering case linked to fugitive gangster Dawood Ibrahim, his aides, and the Mumbai underworld. He has been sent to custody of the Enforcement Directorate till the 3rd of March. From 25th of February onwards, workers of all three Maha Vikas Agahdi parties will hold morchas in the state. And on to business news right now. Sensex plunged 2,700 points, which is about 4.7%, and Nifty was below 16,300 amid the Russia-Ukraine crisis. All sectors were trading in red today. Also, oil and gas prices surged today, and global stock markets fell sharply following the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. Brent crude hit $105 per barrel for the first time since August 2014, following a rise of more than 8% on international energy markets. Also, Moody's has raised India's GDP growth forecast for 2022 to 9.5% from 7% earlier, citing a stronger economic recovery after the COVID pandemic. It retained GDP growth forecast for 2023 at 5.5%. And one piece of good news before we wrap things up here on this bulletin. Swedish furniture retailer Ikea India has announced the appointment of Susanne Pulverer as its first woman CEO and Chief Sustainability Officer for its India business. Now, she will replace the outgoing CEO, Peter Betzel. She joined Sweden-based Ikea in 1997 and moved to India in 2007 to head the purchasing function for Ikea South Asia. That brings us to the end of this bulletin. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.